So the objective for us today is kind of two words juxtaposed, maybe not make a lot of sense together, but we're going to try to give you an advanced introduction to the architecture and our products, and in particular the product that's going to come out in the closest time frame, which is called Knight's Corner. We'll talk about kind of the product flow in a second. Anyway, we want to give you an advanced introduction, but not just an introduction to development on the platform. That's what our goal was. You'll see how we tried to achieve that and what we can and can't do today. Here's the assumptions that we have for the audience. So this is sort of where we're coming from. We obviously know you're in the HPC industry, and you're, most of you are developers, so we expect that you have some background in that. You're familiar with an HPC programming language like C, C++, and or Fortran. I think we mostly have C-oriented labs, sort of like yesterday. You have a basic understanding of the Intel multi-core architectures, and hopefully you got some, or let's say x86, because I know you were working on AMD yesterday as well. But you're familiar with those architectures. We're going to assume you have that baseline. And then the big one is, our understanding is virtually no one in the audience, or maybe very few, have actually had access to a Knight's development corner. We call them SDP, software development platforms. It's obviously not a product yet, not delivered to the market, so we have a limited scope of people in our program. So we're assuming that you don't have that access, and that's kind of what our baseline was. The presenters, we actually have presenters from Intel and also from some of those partners who do have access to our development platforms. So my name's Jim Jeffers. My title, Intel titles are a little bit, not weird, but they're sort of very generic. I'm a senior product application engineer in what's called Intel's Technical Computing Group. The other thing that you'll notice, and this is very prevalent across Intel, but I think in particular in this project, is we have teams across Intel and Intel divisions that are working jointly to get this done. So we really work in a collaborative manner, and this is very evident in here, as you'll see multiple Intel divisions and groups represented. So I'm in the Intel Technical Computing Group. That's within the envelope. It's called the Data Center Group. Our group is actually the group responsible for the actual product development and delivery from an overall standpoint. We essentially are the ones who sell the product to the marketplace and take the lead for that. James Reinders, one of our top software people at Intel, essentially a guru in parallel programming, HPC programming, all over the map, speaks a lot. So we're really privileged to have him here today. He's in the Developer Products Division, all the tools, ICC. You heard James speaking up about the nuances of ICC yesterday. Michael Clem is in the Developer Relations Division. Obviously, that's also another software and services group division at Intel. Dr. Michael Clem, I think many of you know him. He works in the European community with many of you, both on multicore and the Xeon Phi arena. And then Hans is technical consulting engineer. He's from the Developer Products Division, and also sort of spans that gap of working with customers, front-facing to communicate the benefits of Intel's tools and how to use them. And then we have two guests. Glenn Brook is the director of, I forget what the AAC exactly stands for, Glenn can tell you, but it's basically Advanced Acceleration and Computing at the US National Institute of Computational Science, NICS. That's a joint group of Oak Ridge National Labs and University of Tennessee. It's sort of convoluted, but it's really cool. They're out at Oak Ridge and get to leverage the capabilities of both the UT and leverage that group. For instance, runs a computer called Kraken, if you've ever been involved in that. So that's one of the supercomputers, and they also do a lot of work on Jaguar and the other computers at Oak Ridge, supercomputers at Oak Ridge. And then Tommy Minyard will be here. He's the director of Advanced Computing Systems at TAC, Texas Advanced Computing Center. And he's going to talk a little bit later about something called Stampede, which you may or may have heard about. It's the first known public supercomputer that's been announced that's going to be based on the Intel, not based, but will have Intel architecture on it. And we have some cool announcements regarding that in this workshop. So, so that's the people. I wanted to kind of step back for a second before we move on and give you a little bit of perspective of how we got here today, and also one of the reasons why we're very excited. We were talking about this a little last night at dinner. Intel has most companies have a culture. Some of it's implied, how you work together, that type of thing. Intel's is actually very defined. And there's a basis to the culture, and it's been around since sort of the beginning of the company, and there's these things called the 6 Intel values. Now, I'm not going to go all through that, but these are elements that we at Intel sort of leverage as we do our jobs, and there's sometimes tension between the values, or at least a balance you have to strike. And the two I want to talk about is, one is well-defined risk-taking, that sort of makes sense, and the other is make and meet commitments. These two kind of come into play with what we're trying to achieve today, and have a reason for doing that. I would say both these have an interesting juxtaposition with each other, right? If you're really taking heavy risks, your ability to make a commitment and ensure that it gets delivered is a little bit tough. But I will tell you that the group we have here, when we engaged to do this, we went heavy into risk-taking. We don't want to miss the make and meet commitments, and that revolves around the program. But we did some risk-taking. This is a public event. You're not all under NDA. This is a pre-production situation for Intel. It's actually somewhat unique, and a lot of people have trouble really grasping that for Intel, this is a little bit interesting and new, because we usually don't come out with big new, sort of processor, or what we call coprocessor lines very often. That's really a new architecture moving forward. So we have to struggle with this, making a commitment when we say something publicly and delivering on that commitment, while sort of, that's one aspect, and the other aspect, probably less so than you might think, is the whole competitive nature, revealing something that our competitors might find. We more live in the make and meet commitments without being stupid about revealing stuff to competitors. So the reason I said all this is there's something very unique that's going to happen today and tomorrow. We went the risk-taking route. We're going to be pretty open about the architecture, pretty much as we can. Now, we benefited from the build-up to ISC, because with each big event, as we move towards production, more and more is revealed. So we took advantage of the fact that some significant things were revealed. I'll talk about them in a second. So really, this group is very special. There's going to be a lot of firsts that happen today, in particular with access beyond our normal NDA partners. Now you realize that when we're in pre-production, we can't make very many parts and get them out there. That's one of the reasons we're constrained. The program has a little over 100 developers in it. I think, for instance, CSCS is one of our partners. I think they have one SDP unit, if I know, and that is KNF. I mentioned KNC. CSCS, a close partner, still only has a KNF box in-house. This is because of the limited quantities, the capability, the build-up. They will, they're part of the program. They will get a KNC in the beta time frame. Some other customers, based on a variety of factors, have them in hand. But actually, not a lot of this 100 customers have them in hand. Today, we are actually going to give you a chance to jump on systems with KNC. The original plan was, hey, let's do KNF. It's a pretty good proxy for KNC, but it's not our intended product. But we decided as a group, KNF is kind of sunsetting. Why would we get you involved with that? Let's get you involved with the real KNC. So we have a couple of platforms on site, and we're really excited that you're actually going to get access to the beginnings of TAC Stampede. In fact, it became operational yesterday. This is part of the risk-taking. Operational in the sense that it was ready to compile and do things. And Tommy, who I mentioned before, and who agreed to kind of help us through this process, that was a real risk-taking event. We had vendor, Dell is the supplier, I'll talk about that in a second, but pulling that all together, a really stretch for TAC and for us, and they put a lot of effort in order to allow us to do this today. So when you see Tommy, definitely thank him. And this will allow, so we went through stages. We were going to provide the 2 on-site platforms with KNC and maybe give a little flavor, okay? The one thing that this does say is we're going to have basically 9 individual nodes available for the labs. You're going to have to share. There's no real structure that we were able to create where you can multitask on the system, particularly the TAC one, actually. And they're wrapping their infrastructure around it. So you may have to huddle together. There may be some ways of doing sharing. We'll figure that out. You guys probably know it better than I do. You'll figure something out, I'm sure, once you get access to the systems. You'll try it. But there's that. The other thing, as I said, the recent disclosures we had allow us to be naturally more open. Oh, the other thing is the TAC system also has a set of software from Intel that none of our partners have yet except for TAC and now you. So even though you're public and not in, we really want to embrace this community from PRACE and give you that access. So this is part of the reason why we're while we're open. However, it still is a pre-production product, and there's still things that we can't say. So with that as a pre-production, there's a number of things that aren't finalized, and this goes back to the make and meet commitments. When we're in a forum, if we say something, we want to stand by it, and sometimes the marketplace forces us to stand by it if we make a mistake or whatever. And nothing's really a mistake, but anyway, there's certain things. So we're willing to accept all questions, whatever. I hope you're willing to accept that, hey, we can't answer that one. And I said, really emphasize, these are pre-production machines. You will actually, there are certain things, depending on how much interaction you have with Intel and how many questions you've already asked. Excuse me, one of the questions we always get asked, how many cores is this going to be? You never say specifically how many cores is this. We say it's going to be over 50, okay? You're going to get parts where you can see how many cores are there. Note, though, these are in pre-production, and that doesn't mean what the end game is going to be. We are still adjusting parameters, hardware, software. We're still figuring out that. We know we're going to come to a conclusion, and we will have multiple SKUs. It's one of the things that we announced. We haven't said all the configurations of those SKUs. So the point is, you're going to see some stuff that might imply where we're going to go, but it doesn't say where we're going to go. So the one thing we're going to ask in the sense of this openness that we're going to try to do, we're going to lean more towards, giving you the data you need to understand the architecture and what it's about and how you can leverage it. What we would like to ask in return is, please don't go off and start blogging publicly outside this, that I saw a card and it did this and I measured this, and we definitely, the key things, we're not going to talk about specifics of all the elements, how much memory, what's the memory speed. You're going to see a snapshot of something in place. What's interesting, actually, you'll see that we have multiple SKUs for test and development. Obviously, as engineers, that makes sense, right? We're going to try different things, see how they work, and determine what's going to work for us in the marketplace. We'll talk a little bit about availability. There's some reveal that we've made, but we're not going to say what the launch date is. We haven't set the launch date. So, much of the stuff is because we haven't determined what it is. And then, obviously, we've set a brand. We've called it Mike Architecture. There's a future architecture. We're going to stop at Knight's Corner in our discussions, speculating about the future or where we're going. We obviously have things underway. We can't really talk about the future products. So, and speeds, feeds, price. I actually can tell you the price hasn't been set, so I can't tell you anyway. I couldn't tell you. I don't know what it is. So those kind of things. Does everyone kind of, does that feel okay to everyone? We're just sort of asking as a benefit of us being more open. Obviously talk among yourselves. Even afterwards you can talk among yourselves, but please don't start suddenly saying I know everything in the world about it, because frankly we'll never be able to do a workshop like this again, and the Intel people who lean forward to make this happen, actually we could get in relatively big trouble if you try to extrapolate stuff. So I wanted to say that up front. There's no requirement, you're not under NDA, but please honor that. I would appreciate that. Okay.